Hi, in this video we're going to look at tracking and personalization in JSS. To get started with tracking and personalization, the first thing we need to do is actually enable tracking. So there is this guideline which is called JSS tracking, which familiarizes you on how to enable tracking since it's disabled by default in JSS. Let's do that as the first step. So I'll go to my environment, I'll go to my website, app config include, and I'll add a new config file. So I called it here JSS tracking service.config. You can name it whatever you want. And if I open that, what it has is a configuration, Sitecore settings, and the setting named sitecore.jss.tracker service enabled with a value of true. This will enable tracking, so page views will be tracked automatically once we do that. The second thing we need to actually do for anonymous tracking, so in case I want anonymous users to also be tracked, is we need to enable that. To do so, we need to go to the search indexer, so that's within our XConnect, not our default site, within our XConnect site, app data, jobs, continuous, index worker, app data, config, Sitecore search indexer, and we're going to open sc.xdb.collection.indexersettings.xml. Within that, we're going to see index anonymous contact data was false. I set it to true. I also set index PII sensitive data to true. Usually you don't want to set it to true, but this is just for demo purposes. What this will do is personal identifiable information will be indexed as well. You can find also details about this in the Sitecore documentation under enable indexing of anonymous contacts. Now that we've done this, the next thing we want to do is actually create a new component that would actually call an event or issue an event. I'm going to show you how it's created, and then we're going to do one ourselves. So I created this tracking component in Sitecore, and this tracking component, as you can see here, what it has is it submits an event. And what I do is I use the tracking API, which is a much easier way to do it. Just instead of having to do anything, the JSS team has thankfully creating this tracking API, which I can just invoke track event within it, giving it the event ID. So without further ado, let's actually create a new component. So I'm going to call this tracking training component. I'm going to scaffold this component. Once I've scaffolded my tracking train component, because it's actually a component that that I have events in it, it's better to have it as a class. So I'm gonna just use this class for it. So I'll copy this and actually explain it to you as I go along. Let me just change the name here and here. The first thing I did here, of course, is import React. I don't need to import text anymore. I imported the with Sitecore context, tracking API, data fetcher, as well as my config. What I did was I created a class called tracking training component, which of course extends the React component with a constructor. With the constructor just initializing the tracking API options, so that it defines the host, which is config.sitecore API host, the query string params, which is just the API key, as well as the fetcher, which is our data fetcher. Then I created a function called submit event, and what this does is it calls the track event of the tracking API with the event ID. The event ID is ultimately the idea I'm going to get. So let's say, for example, I wanted to invoke the register event when the user clicks the button. So I'll just change this to register. And then I just alerted page event push just to show that. And of course, our render function, which has a button with this class name, and on click, it binds to the submit event. And it has the word submit. Next, I'll deploy that. So I'll deploy my app. And I'll just add this to the home page. Remember, because it's tracking anonymous users and users generally, we need to run it from the CD, not the CM. So I'm gonna have to publish it as well. So let's see that in action as well. So the first step here is just to open my content editor, go to my home page, open it in Experience Editor, and add that button. I haven't really done a full form. You could, of course, do a form. You can do different things here. I just created a very basic thing. So hopefully it's gonna have the components. So I'll just add it in our placeholder settings. So I'll edit this and enable training. Need to remember it was called tracking training component, so I'll add that as well here. Okay, and I'll save. I don't need to save that one. Just waiting for it. Okay, it's done now. So now I can also add my component here. So we should have tracking training component. I'll select that. And of course, I just added this for sample purposes. You don't really need to have any properties or any fields for it because it just has a button. I'll save that. And I'll publish. While it's publishing, I'll actually go back and show you what's currently in my environment. So let's go back here and go to Experience Profile. That's interesting. I have an error in my Experience Profile. That's weird. That was working just a couple of seconds ago. So let's go to my site, app data, logs, just to check what the problem is. We have an internal server error. So let me open Xconnect just to make sure it's working properly. Oh, okay, so my license has expired and I forgot to update it. Silly me. So let me just go to my license from here. And add my license to my Xconnect here. And refresh again. I have to restart. And it should recycle the app. Hold on. So yeah, sorry about that. I fell into the same problem in my actual site and I forgot to update it in the Xconnect as well. Let's try to refresh now and see. Hopefully now this is gonna work. Sometimes bugs do occur and errors do happen when I'm in the video. Okay, here we have it. So I have now my anonymous. Last interaction was 3 days ago. Now I'm gonna open my site. So I remember it was called training something. Let me actually open here. Enough mistakes for now. So it's called Form Analytics. Form Analytics. So this should open the home page and I see my submit button. I'm gonna submit. It says page event pushed. Now let me go back to my Experience Profile, refresh. And because now this is really important, you can see that the last interaction is still 3 days ago. And this is because this session has not ended yet. So I can keep submitting as much as I want, but it will not flush yet. I'll just cheat ultimately and go to the style guide because it does have a flush button. Analytics. So I'll just end interaction. Hopefully that will submit my interaction. As you can see here, this is my new interaction here. It's been added. And as you can see here, the visit has been recorded and the register event has been recorded as well. Because remember, when we put the event here from the marketing control panel, it was the register event. So when I took from here this ID and put it in my submit event, you can of course use any type of event here, and this enables you to add any custom events. Page views are by default added, and this is why we're able to see page views as well here in my experience profile, like this visit. Thank you for watching.